They were once the most powerful warriors of faith on earth. Then, overnight, they became hunted criminals. Their gold vanished. Their leaders were dragged in chains. And the church that once blessed them suddenly demanded their execution. But history tells us only the official story. What it doesn't tell you is what the church was truly afraid of. Because buried beneath accusations of heresy and betrayal was a secret so dangerous. It threatened the very foundation of religious power itself. And the night the Templars were destroyed, something far greater may have escaped the flames. Tonight, we uncover the Knights Templar secret the church was afraid to expose. I still remember the bells. Not the holy kind. Not the kind that called people to prayer. These bells were warning bells. They rang in the middle of the night, sharp and panicked, echoing through the stone corridors of our commandery like the heartbeat of something dying. I had lived inside those walls for 17 years. I knew every sound they made. But I had never heard them like this. I was already awake. You learn that skill when you live with danger disguised as faith. Sleep becomes shallow. Your body stays alert even when your eyes are closed. That night, the air felt wrong. The fire in the hearth burned too low. The silence before the bells rang was too heavy. Then came shouting. Boots thundered against stone. Metal clashed. Doors slammed open with violence that had no patience for prayer. I grabbed my sword before my mind had even accepted what my ears were hearing. This was not an attack from the east. This was not an enemy from outside. This was coming from within Christendom itself. A young brother burst into my chamber. His face was pale. His lips were shaking so badly he could barely speak. "They're here," he whispered. "The king's men. And priests with them." For a moment, the world tilted. The king's men made sense. Politics always circled us like vultures. But priests? That was unthinkable. We were the knights of God's own house. Warriors sworn not to a crown, but to the church itself. We had bled in deserts under holy banners. We had guarded pilgrims with our lives. Every cross we wore was a public oath of loyalty. And now, the cross was standing in our doorway with chains. I followed the boy into the corridor. Torches threw wild shadows across walls carved with prayers older than my memories. Brothers were being dragged from their rooms, still half-dressed, still confused. Some resisted. Some wept. Most simply stared in disbelief. At the far end of the hall stood a row of armored soldiers. Behind them, robed figures watched in silence. Priests. Their faces were cold. Not angry. Not righteous. Cold. A captain stepped forward, scroll in hand. His voice rang with rehearsed authority. "By order of His Majesty the King, and by the blessing of the Holy Church, the Knights Templar are charged with heresy, corruption, false worship, and treason against God." The words echoed like a curse. Heresy. We had heard rumors. Whispers. But rumors are easy to ignore when your life has been built on obedience. We believed truth would protect us. We were wrong. They bound our hands with iron. Not rope. Iron. As if they feared we would burn through it with prayer alone. As they led us outside into the freezing night, I looked up at the stars. I had once followed those same stars across foreign lands, guarding relics for the church. Now they watched me like strangers. We were taken through torchlit streets. People watched from behind shutters. Some crossed themselves. Others spat toward the ground. By morning, the stories would already be changing. By morning, we would no longer be holy warriors. We would be monsters. They separated us into stone cells beneath the city. Cold. Damp. Silent but for distant screams that had not yet learned to echo. My cell was narrow. A single slit of light near the ceiling. Straw on stone. Chains bolted into the wall. When the door closed, I finally allowed myself to sit. And for the first time that night, fear reached my chest. Not fear of death. Fear of something else. They did not come for us because of gold. They did not come for us because of politics. Those were excuses. They came for us because of what we knew, because of what we had found, because of what had never been meant for mortal hands, least of all the hands of a king or a pope. I had discovered the truth 5 years earlier in a place erased from maps and memory, a place where history had been sealed behind stone and blood. And from that moment on, I knew it would someday cost us everything. The footsteps came hours later. Slow, measured, confident. The door opened. 2 guards entered, followed by a man I had never seen before. He wore priestly robes, but his eyes were those of an interrogator, not a shepherd. He studied me like a ledger. "Brother Elias," he said. He knew my name. That alone was dangerous. "You are accused of denying Christ, of worshipping false idols, of practicing secret rites beneath your commandery." I laughed softly. Not in mockery. In exhaustion. "I have fought and killed for the cross since I was 15, I said. "If you believe that makes me a heretic, then your church has forgotten its own blood." His eyes did not flicker. "You will confess," he replied calmly. "Every Templar does. Eventually." I leaned back against the cold wall. "No," I said. "We die. That is what we do. We do not invent lies for our enemies." The priest stepped closer until his shadow swallowed my face. "You are not our enemy," he whispered. "You are our mistake." My stomach tightened. "Mistakes are erased." He nodded to the guards. The first blow came from behind. A mailed fist crashing into my ribs. Air exploded from my lungs. The world folded inward. Then came another. And another. Pain became a language spoken without words. They beat me to exhaustion. Then they waited. Then they beat me again. Days blurred into cycles of light, darkness, questions, and screams. Some mine, most not. They wanted names. They wanted places. They wanted confirmation of rituals that never existed. And they wanted one answer above all others. "What did you find beneath the temple?" Each time they asked that question, their voices changed. The anger vanished. Only hunger remained. I said nothing. Not because I was brave. Because I knew what would happen if the truth became public. The church would burn itself before allowing it to be known. Weeks passed. Or months. Time loses meaning in chains. Many brothers broke. Some confessed to crimes they did not understand. Some accused each other in hope of mercy. There was no mercy. One by one, they were taken away. Trial. Sentence. Fire. Through cracks in my cell wall, I could smell the smoke from the pyres. The smell of burning flesh is different from any other smoke. It stays in your memory forever. One night, they brought a man into my cell. An old knight. One of the first I had ever trained with. His beard was matted with blood. His eyes were hollow. "They killed Master Gerard," he whispered. I closed my eyes. "The master of our house. Dead." They said he confessed. The old man continued. "They said he admitted we worship something beneath the temple." I opened my eyes. "And did he?" The old man shook his head in horror. "He screamed your name before they lit the fire. He screamed that you had seen it with your own eyes. That you had touched it." The priest returned the next morning. He brought food. That was new. He placed a wooden stool in front of my chains and sat calmly, as if we were equals speaking of market prices. "The master is dead," he said. "I know. He suffered less than others." "Then you were merciful," I replied. His lips curled faintly. "You still believe mercy rules this world." He leaned closer. "You were at the excavation," he said. "You entered the sealed chamber. You read the inscriptions." I felt my heartbeat rise. "You will tell us what lies beneath Solomon's temple." Silence stretched between us. Finally, I spoke. "If I speak," I said, "you will erase every soul who hears it." "That depends on what you say." I looked at the chains digging into my wrists. What lies beneath the temple does not belong to kings. It does not belong to priests. It barely belongs to God. His eyes hardened. Everything belongs to the church. No, I whispered. That is the lie that will destroy you. For the first time, he struck me himself. When he stood again, his breath was heavy with anger. You think this secret protects you, he said. It does not. It condemns you. Then he said the words that froze my blood. The fires are being prepared in Paris. All who remain silent will die together. Mass execution. Public. Final. As he left, I realized something with crushing clarity. They no longer needed our confessions. They only needed our silence. Because whatever we had uncovered beneath the ancient stones terrified them more than any heresy ever could. And the world would soon believe we deserved to burn. But the truth would not die in the flames. Not while even one of us still breathed. And I was still alive. The first time they sent me beneath the temple, I believed it was only another routine duty. The holy city had always been full of secrets buried beneath its stones. Every army had dug here. Every empire had tried to peel away a layer of the past and claim it as proof of divine favor. We, the Templars, were simply the latest guardians of ruins older than memory. Or so we thought. The entrance did not look sacred. It was hidden behind a collapsed wall inside an abandoned courtyard that few pilgrims ever reached. Rubble had been deliberately piled to disguise it. The markings on the stone were not Christian. They were older. Sharp lines carved with tools no longer known. Symbols worn smooth by centuries of dust. When the torch first touched those markings, I felt a strange tightening in my chest. Not fear. Recognition. As if my body knew something my mind had not yet remembered. There were 6 of us that night. Veterans. Silent men who had learned long ago that obedience keeps you alive. Our orders were simple. Clear the passage, retrieve any relics, and report without interpretation. No questions. We began clearing the stones. The opening was narrow, just wide enough for a man to slip through sideways. Cold air flowed out like a slow breath from the earth itself. Stale. Old. The kind of air that had waited many lifetimes for the touch of fire. One by one, we descended. The stairs were carved directly into the bedrock. Each step uneven. Ancient. Our torches threw trembling light down an endless throat of darkness. The walls were etched with lines of strange writing. Not Latin. Not Greek. Something older still. None of us spoke. It took nearly an hour to reach the bottom. The chamber we entered was vast. Unnaturally so. The ceiling vanished into shadows beyond the reach of our torches. Stone pillars rose from the ground like the ribs of a buried giant. The floor was smooth, worn by hands and feet that no longer walked the earth. And at the center of the chamber lay a sealed stone vault. It was not decorated in the way Christian coffins were. No crosses. No saints. No scripture. Only geometric carvings that formed patterns I had never seen in any holy book. Our captain ordered us closer. As I stepped forward, a pressure filled my skull. Not pain. Weight. As if the silence itself had mass. We circled the vault. There were no hinges. No handles. No visible seams. Yet at the center of its lid, a symbol had been deliberately left exposed. A circle. Inside it, a shape that was neither animal nor human. The captain ordered us to open it. We struck the stone with tools. Nothing happened. We struck harder. A crack appeared. And from within that crack came a sound. Not a voice. Not exactly. It was like breath passing through a hollow body. Low. Slow. Alive. The youngest knight dropped his hammer. We should have retreated. We did not. The more we broke the seal, the stronger that sound became. The air thickened. My ears rang. The torch flames bent inward as if the chamber itself were inhaling. Then the lid finally shifted. A thin gust of warm air rushed out. Warm air, buried under the temple for centuries. The smell was wrong. Not rot. Not decay. Something sharper. Metal. And stone. And lightning. Inside the vault was no body. There was an object. It rested on a raised stone pedestal. Its surface reflected our torchlight not as metal does, but as black glass reflects fire. No rust. No dust. No age. It looked untouched by time. No words exist to describe it cleanly. It was not shaped for worship. It was not shaped for war. It was shaped for something that did not need hands. As we stared, one of the knights whispered a prayer without realizing it. The sound of his own voice startled him. Startled all of us. The captain approached the pedestal. "And this," he said softly, "is why kings kneel in secret." He reached toward it. Before his fingers touched its surface, a low vibration filled the chamber. The pillars shuddered faintly. Dust fell from the ceiling like slow snow. He pulled his hand back. No one moved. That night, we sealed the vault again. But the seal was no longer protection. It was a lie we told ourselves. Within days, messengers began arriving from Rome. Orders grew urgent. Meetings were held behind locked doors. Guards were doubled. Access to the lower tunnels was restricted to those of us who had seen the chamber. We were sworn to silence under penalty of death. Not that it mattered. We were already doomed the moment we laid eyes on what lay beneath. Months passed. The object was moved. Not to a church. Not to a treasury. It was carried under heavy guard to a fortress outside the city. Only 3 men from the church were allowed near it at any time. They were not priests I recognized. They wore priests' robes. But they did not behave like men who answered to God. They behaved like men who answered to knowledge. That was when I began to understand the truth. The church was not afraid of heresy. The church was afraid of being replaced. I was summoned weeks later to translate the ancient markings found etched around the original vault. The writing was not language as we understand it. It was instruction, pattern, sequence. As I traced the carvings with charcoal, their meaning unfolded slowly, painfully. It was not a prayer. It was not a warning. It was a map. A map showing where similar vaults had once existed. Dozens. Spread across lands that no longer shared borders or rulers. Every major holy site had once been chosen for a reason far older than religion. The symbols matched ruins in places now claimed by every faith on earth. Mosques, churches, temples, built atop something the world had almost forgotten. Almost. When I delivered my findings to the church officials, they listened in frozen silence. No praise. No gratitude. Only calculation. One of them finally spoke. "This knowledge does not belong to mankind." I replied carefully. "Then why was it left for mankind to find?" His answer was simple. "So that the right men could control it." From that moment on, we were no longer guardians. We were witnesses. And witnesses must eventually be erased. After that, strange orders began arriving. We were dispatched to collect relics that had nothing to do with Christian worship. Artifacts pulled from pagan temples. Objects sealed away generations ago. Texts that predated scripture itself. The church was gathering something. Building something. And they were terrified we would one day understand what. It was during one of these missions that I finally learned the truth from a dying man. An old scholar. Shackled in a monastery dungeon far from any battlefield. His crime was simple. He had recognized the symbols we carried. As he lay bleeding from his interrogations, he whispered to me through broken lips. "You have found the chambers of the Watchers." I did not understand the term. So he explained. Long before churches. Before kings. Before even organized worship. There were beings or forces or minds, the scholar could not agree which, that taught early mankind law, engineering and order. They did not rule openly. They guided from the shadows. When their age ended, they sealed their instruments beneath the earth and vanished. Religions rose afterward, built unknowingly atop their graves. What is the object? I asked. He smiled weakly through blood. A key, he said. Or a cage. The same thing, depending on who holds it. He died before I could ask more. That night, I understood why the church had turned its face from God toward something older. They were not protecting faith. They were protecting access. They were afraid that if the truth escaped, no crown, no pope, no holy throne would ever be unquestioned again. And we, the sovereign warriors who answered to no king, had seen too much. Which is why the arrests came so suddenly. Which is why the accusations were so absurd. Which is why the public charges were about false worship, when the true fear had nothing to do with worship at all. Back in my cell, years later, I understood now what they truly wanted from me. They did not want me to confess to heresy. They wanted me to confirm the Watchers existed. They wanted proof that what they guarded was real. Proof they could use to bargain with powers far greater than kings. That was why they had not killed me yet. And that was why I could not speak. Because if the world learned what lay beneath its most sacred stones, faith would not collapse quietly. It would drown in panic, power, and blood. And the flames they lit for us would seem merciful by comparison. Yet somewhere beyond these walls, the object still existed. Sealed. Guarded. Waiting. Not for a knight. Not for a priest. But for the moment humanity would finally be forced to face what it had been built upon. And I did not know whether to pray that day would never come, or that it would come soon enough to justify our deaths. The first confession did not come from a traitor. It came from a broken man. They took Brother Matthew 3 days after the fires were announced. He had always been the quiet one. Strong arms. Gentle voice. A man who carried wounded children from burning villages without ever asking what side they were on. When they dragged him past my cell, he did not look at me. Not because of shame. Because his eyes were already empty. That night, the screams lasted longer than usual. They had learned what pain could do to the body. Now they were learning what fear could do to the soul. By morning, the guards whispered that Matthew had confessed. The word traveled like disease through the cells. Confess to what? To spitting on the cross. To worshipping the idol beneath the temple. To kissing the devil's mouth. Each rumor worse than the last. By evening, the priest returned to me with a thin smile and a fresh parchment. Brother Matthew has spoken, he said. He told us everything. I said nothing. He wept while he spoke. Begged for mercy. Your name was the last word on his lips. My chest tightened. You will not see him again, the priest continued calmly. But you may yet follow him in a gentler way. All you must do is confirm what he told us. He slid the parchment closer. On it were symbols. Not Christian. Not Roman. The same markings I had seen beneath the temple. You have already admitted it exists, he said. Now tell us what it is. I closed my eyes. It is not what you think. His smile faded. You always say that, he replied. And yet the fires keep growing. They executed Matthew at sunset. I could not see him burn. But I could hear the crowd. A crowd does not sound like individuals. It sounds like a single animal with many mouths. Cheers rise like breath. Cries fall like rain. And above it all, the crackle of fire. 2 days later, another brother confessed. Then another. The pattern became clear. Those who confessed were executed quickly. Those who remained silent were left to rot. The church did not care about truth. They cared about control. Confession was not about forgiveness. It was about rewriting history while it was still alive to be reshaped. Soon, the official story began to form. The Templars were not loyal warriors. They were a hidden cult. They had worshipped a false god beneath the temple. They had corrupted their rites with forbidden rituals. They had betrayed Christ for power. The more men confessed under torture, the more believable the lie became. People want to believe evil has a shape. They want to believe it wears a uniform they can burn. In the darkness of my cell, I began to understand that the executions were not the real goal. Silence was. Erase the order. Rewrite the past. Seal the chamber forever beneath layers of fabricated sin. What frightened me more than death was that it was working. Each day, fewer voices defended us. The faithful wanted simple answers. The church gave them monsters. One night, the priest returned again. This time, he brought wine. He poured it into a wooden cup and placed it at my feet. The smell of it filled the cell like a memory of warmth long forgotten. "You are dying slowly," he said without cruelty. "I could end it for you before the week is over." I did not move. "You are not saving your brothers," he continued. "They are already dead. You are not protecting the truth. The truth already belongs to us." He leaned close. "You are only choosing how long you will suffer." I lifted my eyes. "You have guards," I said. "Chains. Fires. Armies. If the truth belongs to you, why do you need my words?" For the first time, he hesitated. Because he did not need the truth. He needed legitimacy. Confession makes lies sacred. That night, he brought a new prisoner into the cell next to mine. A woman. That alone was shocking. Women were not kept among us. Her footsteps were steady. Too steady for a prisoner. When the guards left, she spoke softly through the stone. "Brother Elias," she whispered. My blood chilled. No one inside those walls called me by name anymore. "Who are you?" I asked. "A friend," she answered. "And the last one you still have outside these walls." I remained silent. "They have not told you everything," she continued. "They think you know less than you do. And that mistake is the only reason you still live." I listened. "The object was moved again," she said. "Out of the fortress. Across the sea. That was impossible. No ambush had been reported. No escort had been seen." "You lie," I said. "No," she replied. I followed the ship myself. My chains rattled as I shifted closer to the wall. "Why tell me this?" "Because they plan to erase you next," she whispered. "Mass execution in 3 days. Paris will celebrate. The world will forget." A cold calm settled into my bones. "I welcome death," I said. "No," she replied. "You welcome silence. But your silence is no longer protection. It is obedience." Her words cut deeper than any blade. "They are building a new sanctuary," she continued. "Not under a church. Not under a city. Somewhere no scripture reigns. For what purpose?" She hesitated. "To test the key." My breath caught. "So it truly is a key. That depends on what they are brave enough to unlock." Silence returned between us. Finally, I asked the one question that mattered. "Why help me?" "Because my father helped move the first relic," she said. "And he was killed once he understood what it was." I watched the guards throw his body into the river like spoiled meat. I have spent the rest of my life following the shadow of that crime. "You are not a knight," I said. "No," she replied. "But I am a witness." The following night, the priest came again. This time, he did not bring wine. He brought a child. A boy no older than 10. Dirty. Bruised. Terrified. My pulse thundered. "You recognize him?" the priest asked. It was the same novice who had warned me the night of the arrests. "They found him in hiding," the priest continued. "He has told us many things. But he still believes you will protect him." The boy's eyes met mine. Hope flickered in them like a dying flame. "You will speak," the priest said. "Or he will burn screaming your name just as the others did." I felt something inside me fracture. Not my faith. My restraint. "What do you want me to say?" I asked. His lips curved. "Tell us what lies beneath the temple." The boy whimpered softly. I looked at the priest. At dawn, I said. Bring your parchment. I will tell you everything. His eyes gleamed with triumph. When the door closed, I slumped against the wall as the boy's sobs echoed through the stone. From the other side, the woman whispered urgently. Do not, she said. They only need your words. They already have my life, I answered. I will not give them his as well. She was silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke again. Then choose your words carefully, she said. Because some truths, once spoken, cannot be controlled again. Dawn came with the sound of iron steps. They brought the parchment. They brought guards. They brought the priest. They did not bring the boy. Where is he? I demanded. Safe, the priest replied smoothly. For now. I stared at the empty space where his footsteps should have been. The parchment was unfurled. The quill was dipped. Speak, the priest said. Every breath felt heavy. I began to talk. Not the whole truth. Not a lie. Something in between. I spoke of vaults. Of ancient builders. Of forgotten civilizations. Of objects left behind without names. I spoke of maps. Of chambers. Of tools meant for purposes lost to history. The priest listened with growing hunger. When I finished, he said softly, and the key. I met his gaze. The key, I said, was built to keep something locked in, not to release it. Silence filled the chamber. The priest's expression no longer held triumph. It held dread. You are withholding, he said. I have told you what I was allowed to learn, I replied. He studied me for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. Very well, he said. You will die with the others. But the child will live. The guards seized me. As they dragged me from the cell, I shouted to the woman in the darkness. The key is not meant for men. And men are never meant for the power they steal, she replied. They threw me into a holding chamber with dozens of brothers. Some broken. Some silent. Some already burned inside. We were to die together at dawn. And yet, as I lay on cold stone among the condemned, a strange peace settled over me. Because the priest now feared what he thought he owned. Because the woman still breathed beyond the walls. Because the truth had not yet chosen its final tongue. And because somewhere across the sea, the key was waiting. Not for a confession, but for a mistake. Dawn did not arrive with light. It arrived with sound. The sound of chains being dragged across stone. The sound of boots gathering in numbers too large for mercy. The sound of a city preparing itself to watch men die and call it justice. They woke us before the sun. No prayers were allowed. No final words. Only movement. Only iron. We were pulled from the holding chamber in lines of 10. Men I had trained with for years stood beside me now like strangers carved from the same block of fear. Some whispered psalms through cracked lips. Some stared straight ahead, already half gone. No one screamed. That was the cruelest part. The streets of Paris were already crowded. People stood shoulder to shoulder as if waiting for a festival. Vendors sold bread. Children sat on rooftops. Mothers held infants in their arms to let them see history. We marched between rows of torches. Above us, banners of the church snapped in the cold morning wind. The same church that once sent us into deserts to die in its name. The same church that now taught the crowd to hate us. At the center of the square stood the pyres. Tall wooden frames soaked in pitch. Black with old burns. Surrounded by guards, priests, and officials who wore their righteousness like armor. The master's stake stood empty. He had already burned in silence. They read the charges aloud. Heresy. Idolatry. Worship of the false beneath the temple. Each word was met with murmurs of approval. The lie had already taken root. As they tied the first brother to the post, a priest stepped forward with a scroll. Confess now, he called, and your soul may yet be spared. The knight shook his head. They lit the fire. The sound that followed was not a scream at first. It was breath. Long shaking. Then the screaming began. It spread through the crowd like a sickness. Some cheered. Some wept. Most simply watched. One by one, the fires were lit. Each flame erased a lifetime. Each cry shortened the world. When my turn came, I looked into the crowd. And I saw her. The woman from the cell. Standing disguised among the common folk. Our eyes met for an instant. She did not nod. She did not smile. But in her gaze was something sharper than hope. Timing. They bound my wrists to the post. The wood was rough. Cold. The smell of pitch filled my lungs. The priest stepped forward. "Do you repent?" he asked loudly. I lifted my head. "I repent nothing," I said, "except trusting you." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The priest raised his hand. The torch was brought closer. Then the ground shook. Not violently. Just enough. A deep tremor passed beneath the square like a buried heartbeat. Horses reared. The torches wavered. The priest hesitated. And in that hesitation, the explosion came. It did not come from the sky. It came from below. A thunderous force burst through the stone at the edge of the square. Dust and debris shot upward in a choking cloud. Guards were flung aside like broken dolls. The crowd screamed in true terror now. From the shattered ground rose armed men in dark cloaks. Not soldiers of the king. Not warriors of the church. They moved with the silence of trained shadows. Steel flashed. Chains fell. The post behind me shattered under a heavy blow. My wrists came free. For a single frozen heartbeat, the square became madness. People fleeing. Guards falling. Fires left unattended. A cloaked figure seized my arm. "Now," she said. It was her. She pulled me through the chaos. We ran through smoke and falling ash, past bleeding men and overturned carts, past a world that no longer understood what was happening to it. We plunged into a narrow alley where waiting horses stood. Others were already mounted. A handful of brothers. Not many. Only those who had survived long enough for this moment. We rode. Out of the square. Out of the city. Out of the world that had tried to burn us into legend. Not until the city walls vanished behind us did the woman speak again. "You should have been ash," she said. "So should truth," I replied. Yet here we are. We did not stop riding until night fell. We sheltered in a ruined abbey deep in the forest. Roof collapsed. Altar broken. Symbols of faith scattered across rubble like discarded bones. It felt fitting. Only then did she tell me how long she had planned it. "How did you breach the square?" I asked. "Through older tunnels," she replied. "Older than the church. Older than the city. The same kind you once guarded." My stomach tightened. "You followed the map." She nodded. "My father deciphered only a fragment before he died. I spent years finishing what he began. Ashes hide many roads, Brother Elias. Your church built its city on top of forgotten veins. How many are you?" I asked. "Enough," she answered. "And never enough." I looked around at the surviving brothers. Only 13 of us remained. 13 shadows of an army that once spanned continents. "They will hunt us," one knight said. "They already do," she replied calmly. That night, as the brothers slept in fragments of armor among fallen stones, she and I stood beneath the open stars. "You moved the key across the sea," I said. "Yes." "To where?" She hesitated. "Not one place," she said. "Several." I turned to her sharply. "You divided it." "No," she replied. "We divided its function." I did not understand. She drew a small object from her cloak. A metal disc etched with familiar symbols. "One of the controls," she explained. "Not the key itself. A lock without a door." "You took this from the church?" "We took several," she said. Before they realized what they had lost, cold settled into my bones. If they had separated the controls from the object, the church would grow desperate. And desperate powers do not remain hidden. At dawn, a messenger arrived. A breathless boy with mud on his face and terror in his eyes. "The city is in uproar," he reported. "They say demons broke the fires. That the heretics escaped by dark magic. The king has sealed the gates. Rome has issued silence. Silence. Always silence." "They will lie," I said. "They already are," she replied. By noon, the official declaration was issued. The church announced that all the condemned Templars were dead. Every last one. The execution had been complete. No survivors. No escape. We had been erased. On parchment. In history. In the minds of the faithful. But we were still breathing. And now we were ghosts. That night, she finally told me her name. "Isabella," she said. "Why risk all this for us?" I asked. She stared at the fire. "Because the world cannot be owned by what it does not understand." "The key still exists," I said. "Yes," she replied. "And the church is already accelerating its project because of what you told the priest. They fear what they do not command." "They are what they do not command," she said. 3 weeks later, word reached us across broken trade routes and frightened travelers. A secluded island monastery in the Western Sea had been sealed under papal decree. No monks allowed to leave. No ships permitted to approach. Soldiers guarded its shore. In the dead of night, strange lights had been seen beneath its cliffs. "They moved the object there," one brother whispered. "No," Isabella corrected. "They moved the heart there." "The heart of what?" another asked. She looked at me. "The heart of whatever sleeps behind the locks." A chill rippled through the brothers. "What happens when they test it?" one asked. Isabella's eyes darkened. "Then the world will learn whether it was buried to protect us, or to protect itself from us." We all knew what came next. We could keep running. Or we could become what they had already named us. Heretics. Outlaws. Enemies of the holy order of deceit. And for the first time since my chains had fallen, I felt purpose stir again beneath the ashes of faith. "We go to the island," I said. The brothers looked at one another. One by one, they nodded. Ghosts do not need permission to walk through forbidden ground. That night, we burned our remaining banners. There would be no more visible order. Only a hidden one. No longer bound to kings. No longer bound to priests. Bound only to a truth that could not be trusted to the altar that had tried to burn it. And far across the sea, beneath stone and secrecy, the church prepared to open a door it did not understand. The sea does not care about faith. That was the first truth I relearned as we crossed the black water under a moonless sky. Waves rose and fell like the breathing of some ancient creature that had outlived every god men ever named. The wind cut through our cloaks. Salt burned in cracked lips. And the world we once knew faded behind us with every stroke of the oars. The island did not exist on any chart. Sailors whispered of it as a curse. Merchants avoided its waters. Fishermen who drifted too close spoke later of strange lights beneath the cliffs and currents that pulled without warning, as if the sea itself guarded something beneath the rock. Isabella had waited years to confirm its location. The church had found it first. By midnight, its dark outline rose from the fog like the back of a giant buried beneath the ocean. Sheer cliffs climbed from the water. No harbor. No beach. Only jagged rock and a single narrow inlet invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. We drifted into that inlet without speaking. Above us, torchlight flickered along the cliff edge. Soldiers. Dozens. The church had not hidden this place. They had fortified it. We secured the boat inside a narrow cavern where the tide could not reach. From there, a vertical tunnel climbed into the heart of the cliff. It was not natural. Chisel marks lined the walls. Old ones. Long abandoned and only recently reopened. The same builders, I whispered. Isabella nodded. They always choose stone that remembers. The climb took hours. Armor scraped softly against rock. Breath became smoke in the cold shaft. Every sound felt dangerous. Every heartbeat sounded like betrayal. At the top, Isabella signaled us to stop. Voices echoed through a chamber beyond the exit. Priests, scholars, soldiers, many more than we had expected. We listened in silence. The resonance has increased since the last cycle, a man said. His voice was sharp with hunger masked as discipline. Then we proceed to the next phase, another replied. Rome demands results. Rome does not understand the risks. Rome understands power. That is enough. Isabella slowly drew her blade. This is the final sanctuary, she whispered. They are already testing. The chamber beyond the shaft was vast, carved deep into the island's core. Stone pillars supported a ceiling blackened with torch smoke. At the far end stood a massive circular door carved with the same symbols we had seen beneath the temple. But now the symbols were glowing. Not with fire. With motion. Light moved inside the carvings like liquid beneath glass. At the center of the circle, a socket waited. Empty. The heart had been brought here. The controls had not. Yet. We counted the guards. Too many for a frontal attack. So we became shadows. We moved through side passages, ancient service corridors built for forgotten hands. Isabella led as if she had walked here in another life. We took men silently. One by one. No shouts. No raised alarms. Only falling bodies and fading breath. Still, the deeper we moved, the heavier the air became. A subtle pressure pressed against my skull again. The same weight I had felt beneath the temple years ago. It was awake. Not fully, but aware. At the outer ring of the main chamber, we split into two groups. Half would target the scholars. Half would reach the heart. I went with Isabella. The object was smaller than I remembered. Not in size. In presence. It no longer filled the room with its silence. It pulled at the air like gravity. It stood on a raised stone dais surrounded by inscriptions that shifted slowly, rearranging themselves like living script. It was no longer dormant. They've been feeding it, I whispered. Yes, Isabella replied. With vibration. With blood. A priest stood near the object with trembling hands raised above it. His lips moved in constant prayer, but the words were not Latin. They were older. Wrong. The heart responded. The script across its surface flared brighter. The chamber trembled faintly. I saw now why they needed the controls. They were trying to force the door without its keys. And the door was resisting. A soldier stepped between us and the dais. He was young. Fear trembled beneath his armor. Turn back, he whispered. You do not understand what you are reaching for. Isabella struck him down. Understanding was no longer a luxury we could afford. We reached the dais. Up close, the heart was neither stone nor metal. Its surface rippled faintly like slow water frozen into shape. The light within it pulsed like a sleeping pulse. It was not an idol. It was a mechanism. Built for a purpose no prayer could change. Voices surged behind us. The scholars had raised the alarm. Soldiers poured into the chamber. Steel clashed. Shouts echoed. Fire flew from overturned torches. The island trembled as boots thundered across ancient stone. Place the control, I shouted. Isabella drew the metal disc from her cloak. As she moved closer, the heart reacted. The shifting symbols aligned. The pulsing light intensified. A deep tone surged through the chamber. Not heard with ears alone. Felt through bone. Below us, far beneath the stone, something answered. A sound returned from the depths. A signal. Not to us. To what had built it. The priest screamed. This is forbidden. You will awaken the watchers. Isabella slammed the disc into the socket. The tone vanished. The light stabilized. The heart went still. Relief did not come. Silence did not come. Only expectation. What did we just stop? I whispered. The opening, she replied. Not the awakening. The remaining priests fled. The soldiers fell back in panic. Something was changing. Not violently. Subtly. The air inside the chamber began to circulate unnaturally, drawn toward the heart like breath into a lung. Cracks spread across nearby pillars. Dust rose. Far below the island, the sea began to churn. This place cannot hold it, Isabella said. Then why was it built to? I asked. Not to hold it, she answered. To delay it. A roar surged through the island. The entire cavern shook. Stone fissured. Fragments fell like rain. The brothers shouted in warning. We must leave. One cried. Isabella hesitated. The control disc vibrated violently in the socket. The heart surged brighter. We can't abandon it, she said. If they reclaim the controls, a massive shockwave rippled through the sea beneath us. The island lurched. Men were thrown from their feet. Torches died. Darkness swallowed the chamber in one violent breath. Then light exploded. Not flame. Not lightning. A vertical column of pale radiance erupted from the heart and punched through the ceiling of the cavern, through layers of stone, and into the night sky above the island. The sea screamed. Water was forced backward in a widening ring as if the ocean itself recoiled. The column vanished as suddenly as it appeared. Silence crashed down like a slammed door. In the aftermath, nothing moved. No sound. No vibration. Only breath. Smoke drifted upward where the stone ceiling had briefly become sky. The heart stood unchanged. Still. Perfect. As if nothing had happened. But deep within the island, something had shifted. We triggered a cycle. Isabella whispered. Not a release. A message. To whom? I asked. She looked at the heart with fear she no longer tried to hide. To wherever its makers went. We fled before the surviving soldiers regained their courage. The island behind us did not collapse. It stabilized. As if it had exhaled and found balance. From the sea, we watched strange light ripple once beneath the surface like something massive turning in sleep. Then the water went dark again. By dawn we were miles away. No pursuit followed. The church did not chase us. They did not send ships. They did not issue proclamations. They went silent. That silence terrified Isabella more than any army could have. They are afraid, she said. Which means something they expected did not happen. Or something far worse had. Weeks passed. Rumors spread along hidden routes. Rome closed 3 archives. 2 cardinals vanished. A remote monastery in the north was quietly evacuated and sealed under military guard. The church was moving fast. Rearranging pieces. Preparing for something. I felt the pressure in my skull grow faintly stronger each night. You feel it too, Isabella said when I finally admitted it. The resonance, I replied. Yes, she whispered. It's searching. For the first time since the fires, I felt true dread. Not fear of death. Fear that what we had done could not be undone. That the heart had been waiting. Not to be opened, but to be answered. And somewhere beyond the reach of our world, an answer might already be on its way. Weeks after the island, we found ourselves moving across lands that no map marked, following whispers and rumors that seemed to know more than any living man could. Isabella led, as always, silently, determinately. Each step, each hidden path, each abandoned village we passed seemed to hum with a memory older than kingdoms. The heart had not been opened. It had only sent a signal. We did not yet know to whom, or for what purpose. But something beneath it had awakened. Something in the world beneath the world. And we could feel it. One evening, We settled in a ruined abbey along the border of the kingdom. No windows remained. Roofless, open to the sky. Perfect for shadows and secrecy. We had set up watches around the perimeter. Even in ruins, sound traveled. And in ruins, it was easier to hear the whispers of what was to come. I sat by a small fire, sharpening my sword, when Isabella approached. Her face was pale. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, from anticipation. "They are moving," she said. "Who?" I asked. "Everything beneath the heart," she replied. "The signal reached them. The watchers, or whatever built the heart, they are responding." I froze. I had never believed in monsters. Not truly. We were soldiers. Warriors. Men who measured faith in steel and prayer. But what she said made the hair on the back of my neck rise. "How can you be certain?" I asked. "The air," she said. "The stones. The blood we spilled in the last fight. It's not ours alone. Something beneath felt it, and it's awake now." The night deepened. I looked toward the ruins, trying to focus, but even the stars seemed restless. Then I saw it. A faint glow beneath the floor. Not fire. Not torchlight. A soft, pulsating light that seemed to grow brighter, not from flame but from something alive. "Do you see that?" I whispered. She nodded. "It has found us." We quickly roused the brothers. The glow intensified, moving beneath the stones as if something large crawled beneath the earth. The abbey shuddered faintly. Dust fell from the walls. Broken beams groaned. "Is it attacking?" one of the brothers asked, his voice tight with fear. "No," Isabella replied. "It is testing." We watched as the pulsating light spread. The ruins themselves seemed alive, responsive, as if the heart was extending tendrils through the land, seeking something. We realized in that moment that the heart was more than a relic. It was a signal. A messenger. And what it summoned would come whether we were ready or not. Hours passed. The glow dimmed slightly, and the earth stilled. We were left with uncertainty, with tension that did not fade even in exhaustion. Isabella stayed by the fire, staring into the shadows as if expecting movement. I kept watch at the doorway, my sword in hand, listening for even the smallest sound. Then, just as the first light of dawn began to pierce the night, we heard it, a sound not like any beast, nor any man. It was deep, resonant, vibrating through the earth itself. A single low note that seemed to carry through bone, muscle, and blood. The brothers froze. I felt it in my chest. Not fear. Reverence. Awe. Something older than the church, older than the kingdoms we had served, older than the Templars themselves. "They heard," Isabella whispered. "What do they want?" I asked. "They want acknowledgement," she replied. "Not war, yet. Just recognition that we exist, that the signal reached the world above." It was then I understood. The heart beneath the island was not just a relic, a key, or a prison. It was a signal to something vast, ancient, and aware. Something the church had discovered, controlled, and feared for centuries. And now it had reached out beyond the island, beyond the sea, to respond to us, or to test us. We prepared to leave the abbey immediately. Even in ruins, we could not risk discovery or the wrath of what lay beneath. We packed quickly, taking only essentials, leaving behind any sign that we had been there. The pulsating light returned faintly as if following our movement, a subtle reminder that the heart had not forgotten us. As we left, Isabella spoke softly. "We are the first to witness this awakening," she said. "The church will want it hidden. The world will want it explained. But neither is ready. Not yet." Days later, moving through forests and mountains, we found evidence of similar signals elsewhere. Faint tremors in the earth, inexplicable lights at night, sudden disappearances of wildlife along our path. Each incident confirmed our suspicion. The heart had not acted alone. Its signal had summoned attention. Something beneath the ground was aware and watching. We began to understand the stakes. The Chech's obsession with the heart was not merely for control over relics or knowledge. It was a desperate attempt to contain what humanity was never meant to hold. And now that we had interfered, we were no longer just witnesses. We were participants. One evening, near a narrow canyon, the glow appeared again. This time, it was not beneath our feet. It rose from the ground like a column of liquid light. It hovered, suspended in the air, shaping itself with purpose. The brothers trembled, unsure whether to flee or confront it. Isabella approached carefully. "It is testing our intent," she whispered. "It wants to know if we seek destruction or understanding." I swallowed hard. "And if we fail? It will decide for us," she said. We watched for hours, silent, waiting for the next movement. The light pulsed and shifted, as if scanning us individually, measuring our hearts and souls. We felt exposed, vulnerable, judged, not by men, but by something beyond comprehension. When the light finally receded, it left behind a faint symbol etched into the ground, an unfamiliar sigil that radiated energy we could almost feel through touch. Isabella traced it carefully. "This is a message," she said. "Or a guide. It will lead us, somewhere. To something. Or someone." A chill ran through my spine. This was no longer about survival. No longer about evading the church. It was about following a path dictated by forces we could barely understand. The heart beneath the island had awakened a chain of events. The world itself had shifted in response. And we were caught in the middle. The brothers whispered fears of demons, curses, and divine wrath. I said nothing. I had learned by now that speaking too much only invites doubt. Isabella stayed quiet as well, letting the weight of the situation settle over all of us. We moved at night, following the faint traces left by the light. The path led us through forests, abandoned villages, and mountain passes that had long been forgotten. Each day brought a new challenge, hazards both natural and unnatural. The earth itself seemed alive, guiding us, testing us, and warning us of unseen dangers. On the fifth night, as we camped in the shadow of a mountain, Isabella finally spoke. "They are watching," she said. "Not just the heart, but those who made it. Those who designed it to communicate across centuries. Whatever responds to the signal, it is aware of us now. And it knows we are not alone." I shivered. "Do you think it is hostile?" She shook her head slowly. "Not yet. But it does not act without purpose. And its purpose may not align with ours." We fell silent, each of us lost in thoughts too heavy to speak. That night, for the first time since the fires in Paris, I prayed, not for survival, not for victory, but for understanding. The earth itself seemed to answer. Beneath our feet, a faint vibration pulsed, steady and slow, like a heartbeat. The signal beneath the heart had found us. And now, we were following its call. I knew then that nothing would ever be the same. The church had tried to erase us. The world had tried to forget us. But something older than faith, older than kingdoms, older than men, had remembered. And it was coming. The signal led us deeper into the mountains than I had ever imagined. Trails vanished under moss and stone. Villages we passed were abandoned, their doors open like mouths that had cried themselves silent. Nothing lived there but shadows and the wind. Every step we took felt guided, not by maps or instinct, but by something far older than any human hand. By the third day, the path narrowed to a jagged canyon. The cliffs rose on either side, black against the fading light of dusk. Isabella stopped abruptly. "This is it," she whispered. I looked at her, my chest tight. "The heart." "No," she said. "The place it has been guiding us to. The Chamber of Whispers." The name alone sent a shiver down my spine. It sounded like a myth. A warning carved in stories told by dying men. But the air around us carried proof. A faint hum, barely audible, vibrated through the stones beneath our feet. Whispers, not in any language I knew, but voices all the same. Soft, urgent, insistent. We descended cautiously. The canyon walls narrowed until we had to walk in single file. The whispers grew louder, echoing, overlapping, shaping themselves into something almost comprehensible. I thought I heard my own name in the chorus, repeated over and over, carried in tones both familiar and alien. At last, the canyon opened into a cave mouth. The entrance was framed with jagged stone, etched with symbols that pulsed faintly as we approached. Isabella held up her hand. "They are watching," she said. "Who?" I asked. "The ones who built the heart. The ones who speak through it." We entered slowly. Torchlight revealed a vast chamber, unlike any I had seen. Stalactites hung like frozen spears. The floor was smooth, polished stone that reflected light in a strange, liquid manner. And all around, faint etchings glowed softly. Symbols, spirals, patterns that seemed to shift if you looked at them too long. And the whispers, they were all around us now. Coming from every direction, yet nowhere at all. Voices of men, women, children, but also something else. Something older. Something that did not belong to flesh. "Do you hear them?" one brother asked, his voice shaking. Isabella nodded. "They are calling, testing, judging." We moved forward carefully. The chamber narrowed slightly, leading to a central dais surrounded by pillars that glowed faintly with the same energy as the heart. At the center of the dais lay a pool of dark liquid, black as night, smooth as glass, and perfectly still. "The mirror of whispers," Isabella breathed. "It shows more than reflection. It shows intent. It shows truth." I swallowed hard. I did not want to see the truth. And yet, I could not stop myself. She handed me a small torch. "We must know. We must see. Only then can we act." I leaned over the pool. The liquid rippled, responding to my presence. And then it moved, showing not my reflection, but images, memories, moments I had never lived. Cities burning. Wars I had not fought. Faces I had not known. And beneath all of it, a dark shape, an immense, writhing presence, watching, waiting, knowing. I staggered back. My heart pounded. The whispers grew louder, forming words in a tongue that burned through comprehension yet somehow imprinted meaning directly into the mind. The key awakens the watchers. The world shall be judged. The signal calls. Will you guide, or fall? Isabella gripped my shoulder. We are part of this now. The heart will not allow ignorance. It seeks guides, not witnesses. The church failed. Humanity failed. Only those who understand the signal may survive. We fell silent, each processing the enormity of what we had uncovered. The heart, the controls, the signal. It had all been designed to test humanity's ability to carry knowledge, responsibility, and power beyond comprehension. And we were being tested. Then movement. From the shadows along the walls, shapes emerged. Not solid, not entirely shadow. They flickered, coalescing into forms vaguely humanoid. Eyes that glowed faintly under hoods of darkness. They spoke without words. The whispers shifted, now a chorus in unison. Choose, or be swept aside. One brother raised his sword. Another reached for a bow. I grabbed my weapon instinctively. But Isabella stopped us. They are not enemies, she said. Not yet. They test intent. You cannot strike what judges your heart. I watched as the shapes drifted closer. One paused near the pool, hovering just above the dark liquid. It raised a hand, or what passed for one, and the liquid rippled again. This time, it showed not war, not death, but choices. Paths, endless branches of decisions, all stemming from this moment. Some led to salvation. Some to annihilation. Some to truths no human could endure. I turned to Isabella. How do we know which path to choose? She shook her head. We don't. We can only act with knowledge, with purpose, and with restraint. The heart will reveal the rest if we are worthy. A low hum filled the chamber. The pool's surface shimmered, forming a shape, a key, but unlike any key made by men. It was fluid, alive, and yet perfectly structured. The whispers urged, "Place it, unlock, or descend." Isabella stepped forward. "It's a choice," she said. "One wrong action, one selfish thought, and we fail. But if we act together with clarity, we might guide it. Or at least survive it." I realized then that the Chamber of Whispers was not merely a resting place for the heart. It was a crucible. Not fire or steel, but thought, intent, and will. To leave here unchanged would mean death, not just of the body, but of mind, soul, and purpose. We spent hours studying the pool, the key, and the patterns etched around the chamber. We debated, argued, and fell silent. Each whisper seemed to adapt, responding to our inner fears and desires. One moment it encouraged, the next it taunted. Every false thought echoed back, magnified, testing patience and unity. Finally, Isabella spoke. "We must act. Together. Not for the church. Not for power. Not for revenge. For truth. For understanding." The brothers nodded. We stepped closer to the pool. The shadows receded slightly, giving space for our hands to reach the key-like shape. As soon as our fingers touched it, the chamber vibrated gently. The whispers formed coherent voices for the first time, acknowledged, guided, chosen. The liquid shimmered and split, forming pathways in the stone itself, roads into unknown realms beneath the earth, below the seas, even into the skies. The Watcher's presence became undeniable, immense, and yet not hostile. They waited, watching, learning, and perhaps, waiting for humanity to reach a threshold it had never touched before. I looked at Isabella. "We've crossed a line we cannot return from." She nodded. "We have. And now we must decide if we are shepherds, or witnesses of the end." The Chamber of Whispers had revealed more than we were prepared to handle. But the heart's signal pulsed again. Not as a call, but as a heartbeat, resonating through the mountain, through the earth, through us. It was alive. And it had chosen to speak to us. We left the Chamber of Whispers with more questions than answers. Every step outside its walls felt heavier, as if the mountain itself pressed down to remind us of what we had touched. The heart had awakened. The Watchers had seen us. And the path forward was no longer ours to choose freely. The air outside the chamber was crisp, almost deceptively calm. Sunlight filtered through the cliffs, warming our faces after the cold, shadowed chamber. Yet beneath that warmth lay unease. Every sound, bird, wind, falling stone, felt amplified, like the world itself was listening. Isabella led the way down the canyon. "We cannot linger," she said. "The signal we triggered cannot be ignored. Others will come. Not all who arrive will be as discerning as the Watchers." I nodded, though unease gnawed at my stomach. "Who else?" "Hunters," she replied. "Agents of the church. Scholars seeking power. Mercenaries who think they can seize control. And worse." I waited. "Those who follow the heart without understanding." We moved cautiously. The terrain became harsher as the canyon widened into rocky valleys and twisted paths. Time itself seemed to shift. Hours felt like minutes. Days like hours. And the whispers from the chamber seemed to linger in the air, faint, but always present. By the third day, we encountered them. At first, I thought they were shadows, moving among the cliffs like smoke. Then they stepped into the open. Figures cloaked in deep green and brown, their faces obscured by masks carved from bone and wood. They did not speak. They simply watched. Isabella halted. "The Guardians," she whispered. "The Guardians?" I asked, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. "They are the keepers of the forgotten paths," she said. "The ones who have walked the lands touched by the heart for generations. They are neither friend nor foe. Only the worthy may pass unchallenged." The cloaked figures advanced in silence. Their movements were precise, almost ceremonial. As they approached, the whispers rose again, not from the air this time, but from the stones beneath our feet. The vibration carried a warning: prove your intent, or be consumed. A tall figure stepped forward. Its mask was carved like a wolf's face, eyes hollow yet seemingly alive. The figure raised a hand. Instantly, the ground beneath us changed. Paths that had seemed solid twisted into invisible steps, shimmering faintly in the sunlight. Some stones vanished entirely, leaving gaps that fell into darkness. Isabella stepped forward. "We come seeking guidance," she called. The figure tilted its head. The wolf mask seemed to grow sharper, more menacing. Then, with a flick of its wrist, a bridge of stone appeared, stretching across the chasm. But it was narrow, uneven, and flickered like it might collapse at any moment. One of the brothers hesitated. "How are we supposed to cross that?" "The heart will protect those who follow its guidance," Isabella said. "Step carefully. Trust it." I swallowed and stepped forward. The stone felt solid beneath my feet. It pulsed faintly, vibrating with energy that seemed alive. Each step became a rhythm, a communion between the heart, the guardians, and me. As we crossed, the guardians flanked us, silent shadows on either side. When the last of us reached the other side, the lead guardian spoke for the first time. Its voice was a rasp, like wind through dry leaves. "Few who touch the heart walk this path," it said. "Fewer still survive its trials. Your journey is only beginning. You will face tests of mind, body, and spirit. Fail, and the paths will claim you. Succeed, and you may witness what lies beyond knowledge." I felt a chill. "What lies beyond knowledge?" I asked. The guardian's hollow eyes seemed to pierce through me. "Truth," it said. "And with truth comes responsibility. Power does not sleep, nor does it forgive. Choose wisely, seekers." The guardians stepped aside, merging into the shadows of the cliffs. Their presence lingered like a memory, a warning we could not forget. We continued along the paths they had guided us to. Every step seemed laden with unseen eyes. Trees leaned as if listening. Stones shifted beneath our weight. Streams of water whispered in languages our ears could not comprehend. And above it all, the pulse of the heart resonated faintly, like a heartbeat beneath the world. On the fifth night, we camped in a cave high above a valley shrouded in mist. Isabella and I kept watch. "They are watching us," I said. "They are always watching," she replied. "But not all observation is threat. Some is protection." I frowned. "Protection? From what?" "From those who cannot see beyond themselves," she said. "From those who would awaken the heart without understanding. From humans who mistake hunger for power as wisdom." I sat down, tracing the scar on my arm from the last fight with the Chech's soldiers. "We've already faced death," I said quietly. "And yet this feels older, stranger, more alive." "Yes," she whispered. "Because it is. The heart is not bound by mortal rules. It does not bend to kings or priests. And neither do the paths it reveals." The next day, we encountered the first trial. A chasm wider than any I had crossed. No bridge, no visible path. Only the pulse beneath the ground, guiding our steps. Isabella stepped forward without hesitation. "Trust it," she said. I followed, placing my feet exactly where the pulse seemed strongest. Slowly, carefully, the stones beneath us solidified. Step by step, we crossed the chasm, each pulse reinforcing the path. By the time the last brother stepped across, I realized the truth. The heart could guide, but it demanded focus, unity, and intention. Any hesitation, and the path would vanish. Further along, we encountered what the guardians had warned us about: creatures that seemed born of shadow and stone. Their forms shifted, impossible to define. They did not attack, but tested our resolve, forcing us to confront fears long buried. One attacked not with teeth, but by manifesting doubt in my mind. I saw visions of the Paris fires, of Matthew, of men I had failed. I wanted to turn away. I almost fell. But Isabella's hand steadied mine. Focus, she whispered. The heart guides only those who face their own truth. I took a deep breath, steadied my thoughts, and the shadow receded. The path opened again. Days turned into a week. Each trial tested us further: intellect, courage, loyalty, and purpose. The heart's pulse remained constant, subtle but unwavering. We began to understand its message. It was not merely a key to power, but a teacher, a judge, and a guide. And those who failed its tests would vanish, leaving nothing behind but echoes. By the end of the week, we reached a plateau overlooking a vast expanse of jagged cliffs and hidden valleys. In the distance, we could see structures half buried in mist. Ancient buildings, older than any map, older than any kingdom, with towers reaching like fingers into the clouds. The next trial awaits there, Isabella said, her voice steady but tinged with awe. And it is the final one before we reach what the heart seeks us to find. I nodded, my resolve firm. We had survived the Chamber of Whispers. We had passed the Guardian's test. But I could feel the weight of what was to come pressing on us. The heart's pulse grew stronger here, resonating with the ancient buildings ahead. And as we prepared to move forward, I realized a truth I could not ignore. The heart did not guide the weak. It did not reward the selfish. It sought those capable of carrying knowledge, power, and responsibility beyond the comprehension of ordinary men. We were being prepared, not for war, not for survival, but for understanding. And whatever lay ahead, I knew it would change the world forever. The plateau stretched before us like a frozen sea of stone. Mist clung to the valleys below, curling like smoke from some distant, unseen fire. We stood in silence, listening. Not for wind, nor bird, nor human movement, but for the pulse beneath the earth. The heart's rhythm had grown stronger here, like a heartbeat we could all feel in our bones. Isabella motioned forward. The next trials are upon us. Fire and silence. Only one path will allow passage. The other destroys. I frowned. Fire and silence? What does that mean? She shook her head. Not metaphor. The heart tests us with elements, perception, and mind. Fire is not just flame. Silence is not just soundlessness. You'll see. We began descending a narrow canyon that led toward ancient ruins below. The closer we approached, the heavier the air became. It felt thick, alive, and resistant, as if the earth itself was testing our will. The whispers returned, softer than before but sharper, piercing, like needles in the mind. The first trial appeared suddenly. A vast chasm opened in our path. Flames licked the stone edges, rising from fissures in the earth. Heat radiated in waves, burning the air, yet the flames did not spread. The pulse beneath us throbbed in tandem with the flickering fire. Fire, Isabella said, her voice steady. We must cross it. Step only where the heart guides. I studied the chasm. No bridge, no stone steps, no natural path. Only fire and smoke. The flames seemed alive, responding to hesitation. I stepped forward, instinct guiding me. Each footfall solidified a stone beneath my boots. Each misstep would have plunged me into fire. The brothers followed, some faltering, others moving with precision. Isabella moved last, watching us, guiding with subtle gestures. The flames hissed and licked at the edges, but the heart's pulse was our true path. Slowly, carefully, we crossed. Not one of us was burned, but the fire's trial left its mark, not on our skin, but in our minds. Fire tests desire, Isabella explained afterward. Desire for power, for control, for vengeance. Those who succumbed would have been consumed, not physically, but by the weight of what they seek. I nodded, realizing the truth. Fire was not mere flame. It revealed ambition, and the heart would not tolerate those unworthy. No rest came. The second trial awaited immediately beyond the fire. Silence. We entered a cavern where no sound reached our ears. Not wind, not water, not our own breathing. The heart's pulse remained, but it was subdued, barely perceptible. Darkness pressed in from all sides, heavier than night. Silence tests the mind, Isabella whispered. Control, patience, unity. Speak, and you fail. The brothers instinctively began murmuring prayers, words of comfort. Isabella's hand froze them. No sound. Thought alone. We moved forward, guided only by intuition and the faint heartbeat beneath the stone. Every step echoed in our minds as if magnified. Shadows shifted, forming shapes of doubt and fear. Visions of failure, betrayal, death. Each was tailored to our deepest fears. I saw Paris burning again, the pyres, the screams of my brothers long gone. The voices whispered my failures, questioned my loyalty, mocked my courage. I almost faltered. But Isabella's presence beside me steadied my mind. Hours, or what felt like hours, we moved through silence. No words. Only thought. Only pulse. Only resolve. The air itself seemed to weigh upon our thoughts, sorting our intentions. Finally, we reached the center of the cavern. A stone altar stood, carved with symbols that pulsed in rhythm with the heart. Atop it lay a crystal sphere, perfectly smooth, reflecting not our images but our intentions. Isabella stepped forward first, extending her hand. Look within, she said softly. See your truth. I approached. The sphere reflected my choices, my regrets, my fears. It showed me Paris, the church, the island, the chamber, and all the trials we had endured. But it also showed possibilities. Paths not yet taken, decisions not yet made. Paths shaped not by fear, but by resolve and understanding. The sphere pulsed as I reached out. My thoughts intertwined with its surface. The heart's pulse grew stronger, reverberating through my body, aligning my mind with purpose. Each brother did the same. No sound passed our lips. Not a word. Only the shared intent of the group, focused and true. Then, a tremor. The cavern shook. Rocks fell. Shadows twisted into forms more solid, more threatening than before. They tested our unity. One by one they lunged, not with weapons, but with illusions of fear, doubt, and temptation. A vision appeared before me. My sword, lying on the ground. A Templar banner fluttering, calling me back to old ways. Power, vengeance, pride. All whispered promises of safety and control. I looked at Isabella. Her eyes met mine. Do not falter, she said. I reached past the illusion, past desire. I grasped the crystal sphere, grounding myself in truth, unity, and resolve. The shadow vanished, leaving only the pulse of the heart. Silence broke, not with sound, but with understanding. The cavern exhaled. Light spread through the walls, illuminating paths previously hidden. The heart's pulse was no longer faint. It resonated through us, binding our intent as one. Isabella smiled faintly. Fire revealed desire. Silence revealed intent. Only those aligned may continue. The rest are lost to the path. We understood then the gravity of what we had survived. These were no ordinary trials. They were crucibles, tests not of strength, but of mind, heart, and soul. Many would have failed. Many had failed long before they set foot on these paths. Beyond the cavern, the land opened into a valley dotted with structures older than any kingdom, older than recorded history. Towers, ruins, and carved temples whispered of knowledge beyond comprehension. The heart pulsed stronger here, guiding us to the center of this forgotten civilization. A feeling unlike any other settled over me. A mixture of awe, fear, and anticipation. We had passed fire and silence. We had endured the trials. But the heart's path was not complete. From the shadows, figures emerged. Not guardians this time. Not shadows of wood and bone. These were beings of light and substance, humanoid yet not human. They observed, silent, their presence imposing but not threatening. Isabella bowed slightly. They are emissaries, she whispered. The last guardians before the heart itself. The beings stepped aside, revealing a stairway carved into the heart of a mountain. Light pulsed from within, a rhythm unlike any I had felt before. The final trial awaited, one not of body or mind, but of destiny. And as we prepared to ascend, I realized, everything we had endured, the fires, the silence, the whispers, the guardians, had led to this moment. The heart had tested us, shaped us, and now it would reveal what it had been waiting for all along. Whatever lay ahead, I knew we were no longer ordinary men. We were chosen, tested, prepared, and the world beyond was about to witness a force older and greater than any kingdom, any church, any mortal ambition. The ascent began, each step vibrating with purpose, each pulse of the heart guiding us forward. The trials of fire and silence had forged us, but the final path, beyond the light, beyond understanding, awaited. And I could not shake the thought, when we reached the heart, would we understand it, or would it understand us? The stairway carved into the mountain was alive with light. Not fire, not torchlight, but a gentle pulsing radiance that resonated through every stone, every step, every fiber of our being. The pulse beneath our feet, the heartbeat of the heart, grew stronger with each step. It was guiding us, shaping us, preparing us for what awaited at the summit. We moved as one, silent but alert. The brothers followed closely, and Isabella led with unwavering focus. No words passed between us. None were needed. The heart spoke in rhythm, in vibration, in understanding that bypassed language entirely. At last, the stairway ended. We stepped into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost to shadows high above. The air was thick with energy, humming in a way that vibrated inside our bones. In the center of the chamber floated the heart itself. It was nothing I had ever imagined. Not a relic, not a crystal, not a weapon. It was alive. A swirling mass of light and energy, constantly shifting, constantly flowing, yet anchored in the center of the chamber. Symbols from the Chamber of Whispers floated around it, orbiting like celestial bodies, aligning and realigning in response to our presence. I swallowed hard. It's alive, I whispered. Yes, Isabella said. Her eyes shone with awe and fear. And it has been waiting for us. The heart pulsed faster, the rhythm quickening like a heartbeat responding to ours. We stepped closer, and the air seemed to bend around us, carrying whispers from the watchers, voices older than kingdoms, older than faith, older than memory itself. Why us? I asked, though I knew the heart would not answer in words. Isabella placed her hand near the glowing mass. Because it knows what we are capable of. Because we have passed the trials. Fire and silence. Whispers and guardians. It seeks those who can comprehend responsibility, choice, and truth. The heart reacted to her touch, light spiraling faster around it. Symbols hovered, forming patterns that I felt rather than saw, understanding rather than reading. Knowledge beyond comprehension flowed into our minds, not all at once, but in fragments, glimpses of what the heart had been created to do. It was a bridge between worlds, between knowledge and power, between human understanding and something far older. The heart was a signal, a key, a teacher, and a guardian. And it had waited for those who could wield it responsibly. From the shadows of the chamber, figures emerged, light-formed beings, the final emissaries we had sensed earlier. Their eyes glowed faintly, observing us. They did not speak, but their presence conveyed approval. The heart had chosen us. The trials had proven us. Isabella turned to me. This is our moment. We can ask questions. We can seek understanding. But we must be precise. The heart does not grant answers lightly. I stepped forward, and the heart pulsed in response, bathing the chamber in waves of light that carried warmth, energy, and knowledge. I felt memories that were not mine, visions of ancient civilizations, of the Templars, of those who had discovered the heart and tried to control it. I felt the Church's fear, their obsession, their failures. I felt the power restrained by rules older than humanity itself. The whispers grew louder, more coherent. Words formed, not spoken aloud but felt in the mind. Knowledge is a burden. Power is a test. Truth is the path. Choose wisely, for you will carry it forward. I looked at Isabella. It's asking us to decide. Not just to witness, but to act. She nodded. And the world beyond awaits our choice. The church will not accept what we know. Others will come seeking it. We must prepare, not to hide it, but to protect it, guide it, and ensure it is used as it was intended. We reached toward the heart together. The moment our hands nearly touched it, the chamber trembled. The symbols spun faster. Light cascaded around us, revealing hidden corridors, ancient machinery, mechanisms that had never been seen by human eyes. And then, the heart spoke. Not in words, but in thought, in vision, in understanding. I saw the past. The Templars, their secrets, their knowledge buried and feared. I saw the church, Rome, the fires, the betrayals. I saw centuries of manipulation, of attempts to contain what could not be contained. And I understood why the heart had been hidden, why it had waited for us. It was not meant for conquest. Not for revenge. Not for wealth or power. It was a repository, a teacher, a guide. It was meant to prepare humanity for understanding forces far older than faith or kingship, forces that shaped reality itself. And now it was awake. The heart pulsed once, a wave of energy that carried both warning and opportunity. The Watcher's presence filled the chamber. They did not move, but their awareness enveloped us, testing, judging, assessing. Isabella and I exchanged a glance. No words were needed. We understood the weight of the choice before us. To take the heart's knowledge was to accept responsibility beyond comprehension. To refuse it would be to leave the world vulnerable to forces we barely understood, to those who might misuse it. We stepped closer, hands extended. The heart responded, light flowing into us, filling every nerve, every thought, every memory with understanding. It was overwhelming, almost unbearable. I felt centuries of wisdom, knowledge, and warning flood my mind. And then, clarity. The heart was not an object. It was a consciousness. A living repository of history, knowledge, and purpose. It could guide us, but it required intention, humility, and unity. Those who sought it for selfish reasons would be destroyed, or worse, lost to the paths it revealed. I felt the pulse synchronize with my own heartbeat. Isabella's pulse matched mine. The brothers followed, all aligned. We were chosen, yes, but not only to witness. We were chosen to carry forward the heart's purpose, to protect, to teach, to guide, and to ensure balance. The chamber's light dimmed slightly, not from exhaustion, but as if the heart had accepted our alignment. The watchers receded, leaving only the pulse and the knowledge flowing through us. Isabella spoke softly. We are the guardians now. The keepers of the heart. What we do next will define humanity's path. Not as conquerors, not as secret keepers, but as stewards of truth. I nodded, understanding the weight. The heart's revelation was only the beginning. It had tested us, prepared us, and now entrusted us with knowledge that could shape the world, or destroy it if mishandled. As we turned to leave the chamber, I looked back once more at the heart. It pulsed gently, a heartbeat in the darkness, alive, aware, and waiting for humanity to rise to its challenge. The trials were not over. The journey beyond the heart would test us further. But for the first time, I felt purpose, clarity, and resolve. We were no longer ordinary men. We were no longer mere Templars, soldiers, or fugitives. We were witnesses, guardians, and stewards of a power older than history itself. And the world would never be the same. After leaving the chamber of the heart, the mountain seemed quieter than it had in centuries, yet every step we took was heavy with weight. Not the weight of stone or fatigue, but the weight of understanding, the kind that presses on your mind and soul until every decision feels measured against eternity. The heart's pulse lingered within us, steady and persistent, like a second heartbeat that refused to be ignored. We descended carefully, knowing the paths we had taken would never be the same. Shadows moved differently now. Rocks seemed to shift as if the mountain itself remembered us. And whispers, soft echoes of the heart, traveled through the corridors and canyons, reminding us that knowledge, once awakened, could not be silenced. Isabella walked beside me in silence. Her eyes betrayed the same realization I felt. What we had gained could not be hidden, and it could not be ignored. The Church will not let this remain secret, I said finally. She shook her head. They cannot control it. They tried with the Templars. They tried with the fires. They tried on the island. And every time they failed. This knowledge, this power, it cannot be contained by human fear. We moved through valleys where remnants of ancient civilizations peeked through the mist. Towers broken by time, temples buried in overgrowth, statues of figures whose eyes seemed to follow us. All of it was alive with the same energy we had felt in the chamber. The heart's pulse had spread through the land, leaving a trail of awareness in its wake. This is what the heart left behind, Isabella said. It is not just a repository. It is a map, a guide, a test for those who can perceive it. We followed its subtle indications, the pulse, the flow of energy through stone, water, and wind. It led us to a canyon shrouded in mist. The walls were carved with symbols we had never seen before, older than Latin, older than Greek, older than any alphabet that could be spoken aloud. As we stepped closer, the whispers returned, this time coherent and direct. Remember, guard, teach, do not falter. The message was simple, yet impossible to fully comprehend. Knowledge that cannot be forgotten is a burden heavier than any sword or shield. It imprinted itself upon our minds, carving paths of thought and understanding that we could not ignore. We spent days in this canyon, studying the carvings, the pulse, and the whispers. Every hour revealed new truths, principles of balance, cycles of civilizations, warnings of human ambition, and instructions that hinted at technologies and powers humanity had forgotten or never understood. This is everything, one brother whispered. All the secrets, all the wisdom, all the warnings. Yes, Isabella said. And it is our responsibility to carry it. To ensure it is understood and preserved, not misused. I realized then that the heart had chosen not just us, but a new generation of stewards. Its purpose was not domination, not revenge, not wealth, it was guidance. But knowledge that cannot be forgotten is also dangerous. One misstep, one lapse of judgment, and it could unravel everything. That night, we camped beneath a cliff where the pulse was strongest. I could feel it through the ground, through the air, through my own blood. Sleep was uneasy. Every dream was filled with visions, cities rising and falling, armies clashing over unknown powers, empires collapsing under the weight of greed and ambition. And always, the heart's pulse, steady and insistent, reminding me of responsibility. Isabella watched the sky. The heart does not ask for worship. It asks for attention, understanding, and care. What we hold now cannot be returned. Only guided. What if we fail? I asked. She looked at me, eyes reflecting torchlight and fear. We cannot fail. Because if we do, the knowledge itself will seek those who can carry it. And the world will remember. Through fire, silence, and whispers. The next morning, we continued through the canyon. The carvings led us to a stone platform overlooking a valley shrouded in fog. At its center, a large pool reflected the sky above. The pulse beneath us grew stronger here, almost urgent. Isabella approached first, tracing her hand over the water. This is a reflection, she whispered. Not of what is, but of what could be. Every choice, every action. It ripples. The heart teaches through consequence. We peered into the pool. The surface shimmered, showing possibilities. Empires falling due to greed, knowledge misused by men who were unprepared, but also civilizations thriving because they chose wisdom, unity, and restraint. I realized the heart's purpose had always been to prepare humanity, not just for knowledge, but for judgment. Not for power, but for responsibility. We spent hours studying the pool, understanding the ramifications of each vision. The whispers guided us, subtle and insistent, teaching without speaking, showing without forcing. And as the sun set, I understood fully what Isabella had meant. Knowledge that cannot be forgotten shapes destiny. It lives in minds, not in books. In choices, not in walls. Our journey continued. The heart's influence stretched farther than we had imagined. Valleys, ruins, hidden temples. Everywhere we went, energy flowed, guiding, teaching, testing. We learned to read it, to follow it, to interpret its warnings. And every step revealed more of what humanity had lost over centuries. Technologies, wisdom, and truths too dangerous for ordinary men, yet essential for those chosen. One evening, we came across a village buried in mist. The inhabitants seemed ordinary, yet something was different. They lived in harmony with the land, the rivers, and the mountains. They understood the pulse beneath the earth, though they did not know its origin. Isabella whispered, "Some have preserved what we have just rediscovered. They are guides in their own right." The heart's influence is subtle, but persistent. We stayed the night with them, sharing what we could, learning what they had preserved. The heart's knowledge was not just ours, it was everywhere, hidden in people, places, and practices we had long forgotten. And I understood then the enormity of our task. We were not the first stewards, and we would not be the last. As dawn broke, I looked at Isabella. "Do you think humanity is ready?" She shook her head, faint smile on her lips. "No. But it must be guided. And that is why the heart chose us. To lead. To protect. To ensure the knowledge that cannot be forgotten does not destroy what it seeks to preserve." The valley below pulsed faintly with energy. The heart's influence stretched through it, silent, steady, and eternal. We felt it everywhere, the wind, the water, the stones beneath our feet. Knowledge that cannot be forgotten was alive. And it demanded guardians. And we had been chosen. The sun rose slowly over the misty valley, illuminating the hidden temples, forgotten towers, and ruins that had been our path for weeks. The pulse of the heart was steady now, flowing through everything, through the stones, through the rivers, through the wind, and through us. It was a rhythm older than kingdoms, older than faith, older than the history written by men. And we carried it within ourselves. I looked at Isabella, whose eyes reflected the first light of dawn and something deeper, understanding, determination, and the weight of what we had endured. "It feels alive," I said quietly. "Yes," she replied. "Not in the way we understand life. It is thought, intention, and memory, all bound into one. The heart has always existed, waiting for those who could bear its truth." We descended toward the valley floor, where the people we had met yesterday, keepers of forgotten knowledge, awaited. They greeted us not with fear or awe, but with recognition. They knew we had passed the trials, and their silent acknowledgement reminded me of the importance of what we now carried. The heart's pulse was like a living guide. It resonated with each of us differently, yet in unison. It had chosen us, shaped us, tested us, and now it entrusted us with responsibility. But what responsibility could ever match such knowledge? "Do you think the world will understand?" one of the brothers asked, his voice tinged with doubt. Isabella shook her head. "No, not yet. Knowledge that cannot be forgotten is dangerous. Too many would misuse it. But the heart does not demand understanding from the world, only from us. We are the stewards. We are the guides." We walked through the village, observing how people lived in harmony with the land, guided subtly by the pulse beneath the earth. I realized then that the heart's influence had never been about control, it had always been about balance. The Templars, the Church, the fires, the betrayals, all had been attempts to harness what could not be harnessed. Only understanding could wield it without destruction. As the day progressed, Isabella gathered us on a stone platform overlooking the valley. "We have reached the end of the heart's path," she said. "But this is not the end of our journey. The trials were preparation. The knowledge we carry must be applied, guarded, and shared with those who are ready. This is what the heart asks of us." I looked down at the valley. The ruins, the rivers, the forests, they seemed to hum with life, each element in quiet synchrony. The heart had awakened a force in the world that had always existed. It had chosen stewards, not rulers, and it would guide humanity if those stewards remained true. The brothers looked uncertain. "And if we fail?" one asked. Isabella's gaze was unwavering. "Then the heart will find others. It always has. It survives, it watches, it waits. But we are the first in centuries to carry it forward consciously. We cannot fail, not because we are perfect, but because the heart does not choose perfection. It chooses intent." I realized the magnitude of her words. Knowledge that cannot be forgotten is a burden heavier than any sword, sharper than any blade, deeper than any ocean. It shapes decisions, alters destinies, and tests every fiber of your being. And yet, it was ours now. We had endured fire, silence, whispers, and the guardians. We had faced visions of ambition, temptation, and doubt. We had seen the heart revealed and understood its purpose. And now, we were tasked with carrying that responsibility into the world. As we prepared to leave the valley and guide those who could understand, the pulse of the heart intensified once more, as if granting final approval. The air vibrated, carrying whispers that were no longer urgent or fearful, but affirming, "You are chosen. You are ready. Go forth. Guard the knowledge, guide the worthy, and teach without fear. The world will change, but the heart endures." The landscape around us shimmered briefly, as if the very earth acknowledged our passage. The ruins seemed to whisper histories long forgotten. The rivers sang, carrying messages through valleys and forests. And the pulse within us, within all of us, resonated, reminding us of the bond we now shared with something older than humanity itself. Isabella placed her hand on my shoulder. "This is not the end," she said softly. "It is the beginning. Every decision, every choice we make from this moment will shape what the heart has entrusted to us. And the world beyond this valley will never be the same." I nodded, feeling the weight and clarity of the moment. For the first time in years, I understood purpose not as survival or revenge, but as stewardship. We were witnesses, yes, but more than that. Guardians. Teachers. Guides. The brothers stood behind us, each carrying their own understanding of the heart's knowledge. We shared a silent agreement. From this moment forward, our lives were no longer our own. Every choice, every action, every step would ripple through history. The heart had awakened in us, and now we would awaken the world, not through force, but through guidance, protection, and understanding. As the sun climbed higher, illuminating the valley in full light, I looked around and felt a strange serenity. The trials, the whispers, the fire, the silence, all of it had led to this dawn. And though the path ahead was uncertain, though dangers, ambition, and greed would surely challenge us, we were ready. The heart pulsed one last time, a deep, resonant thrum that echoed through the mountains and valleys. It was a rhythm of life, of understanding, of eternal vigilance. And as we descended from the stone platform into the valley below, I realized something profound. The heart does not merely exist. It endures, it guides, it waits. And now, through us, it would act in the world once more. We walked forward into the valley, carrying knowledge that could not be forgotten, guardians of power older than time itself, and stewards of a truth humanity had almost lost. The dawn broke fully, light spilling over ruins and rivers, and I knew with certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. And so began our journey beyond the heart. Not as Templars, not as soldiers, not as seekers, but as keepers of knowledge, guardians of truth, and witnesses to a force older and greater than any kingdom, faith, or man-made law. The world had shifted beneath our feet. The heart had awakened, and the dawn beyond it was ours to guide.